1820, a Scotsman named Gregor McGregor self-proclaimed himself the prince of a fictional country he named Poyais, located in North America. After returning to Great Britain, he began aggressively selling land in Poyais, amassing considerable wealth. However, when 200 British citizens crossed the sea to settle in their promised land, they found nothing but mosquitoes, malaria, and dysentery. Of those 200 hopeful settlers, only about 20 survived. This is the story of Gregor McGregor of the Clan Gregor, an adventurer, a master of marrying for advantage, and one of the most legendary con artists in human history. Chapter 1. The Gregor Clan. Gregor McGregor was born on December 24, 1786, in Glen Hill, Scotland. His father, a captain in the British East India Company, was a descendant of the Gregor clan. This clan, sometimes referred to as the McGregor clan, was a prominent Scottish group, believed to have Celtic royal lineage. Among its notable members was Rob Roy McGregor, a famed Scottish hero who fought against Duke Monroe. Intriguingly, Rob Roy was Gregor McGregor's great-uncle. And yes, before we proceed, Conor McGregor also claimed descent from this clan. Little is known about Gregor's early years, except that his father died early and his mother raised him and his sisters with the help of relatives. At 16, already a strapping young man, he joined the British Navy and was stationed in Gibraltar. He served in the Navy from age 16 to 23, a period that overlapped with the Napoleonic Wars. A significant event in this phase of his life was his marriage to Maria, the daughter of a Royal Navy admiral who was related to 2 generals and a British Parliament member. With his wife's fortune, Gregor ascended to the rank of captain, in an era where military ranks could be purchased. It is estimated that Gregor McGregor paid about £900 for his captaincy. As a captain, McGregor began to show interest in the ceremonial aspects of the rank: uniforms, medals, insignias. This would significantly influence his future. However, his military career ended abruptly in 1810. After being assigned to Portugal, he had to leave the Navy due to disputes with superiors. Following his departure, his battalion distinguished itself in the Battle of Albuera, Badajoz, earning the nickname Diehards. This presumably affected him, as he longed for fame and recognition. Subsequently, Gregor settled in Edinburgh with his wife, trying to integrate into high society and self-proclaiming himself a colonel, a rank he never achieved. After some time, they moved to London, where he declared himself Sir Gregor McGregor, Baronet, a title he did not hold. There, he falsely claimed to have inherited the leadership of the Gregor clan and fabricated connections with nobles, dukes, earls, and barons, and in London, he was believed. Gradually, he gained respect in London's high society. Everything was going well until his wife Maria died, taking with her his main source of income. This posed a dilemma. Seeking another wealthy woman would mean losing the support of Maria's powerful family, but he was also unwilling to return to Scotland to live as an ordinary farmer. One day in London, a celebrated man, admired and respected by the elite, arrived, capturing everyone's interest. He was Francisco de Miranda, the revolutionary general from Venezuela, known for his fight for Venezuelan independence against Spain. During this time, the Spanish-American Wars of Independence were unfolding, pitting royalists, who favored remaining under Spanish monarchy, against revolutionaries seeking independence for new states. All this occurred parallel to the Napoleonic Wars, an era of constant turmoil. In London, it is believed Gregor McGregor met Francisco de Miranda, inspiring a bold idea in him. He thought that by venturing into the exotic New World, he might one day return to British high society with a reception similar to Miranda's. Thus, selling a small Scottish estate inherited from his father, McGregor embarked on a journey across the sea in search of fame and glory. Just like me, who's chasing fame and glory, but I can only achieve it with your help. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the upcoming videos I'm going to release. Chapter 2. Adventure in America. In 1812, Gregor McGregor landed in Caracas, Venezuela, during a critical time for Francisco de Miranda's revolutionary government, which was weakening under the advancement of the Spanish Royalist Army. McGregor presented himself to Miranda, offering his services. Aware that his opponents were monarchists, he stopped claiming his non-existent baronet title, but continued to call himself Sir Gregor, asserting that he had been knighted in the Portuguese Order of Christ during his time with the British Navy in Portugal. He also claimed to have been a member of the famous Diehards battalion, although he had left before they earned that nickname. Miranda, it seems, believed his story and granted him command of a cavalry battalion and the title of colonel. McGregor also married Josefa Aristeguieta y Lovera, a cousin of Simón Bolívar from a prominent Caracas family. This marriage helped him rise to the rank of brigadier general. While in Venezuela, McGregor experienced both military successes and failures, but he particularly stood out in 1816 during the Retreat of the 600. In this retreat, McGregor and his men strategically withdrew through hostile territories, defeating Colonel Juan Nepomuceno Quero twice and joining the Battle of the Alacranes, where they captured the city of Barcelona. This was the moment when McGregor proved his military prowess, leading Simón Bolívar to promote him to division general and honor him with the Order of the Libertadores. Later, McGregor traveled to the United States, where he gathered hundreds of men for an expedition to Florida. Needing funds, he sold land bonds promising fertile lands in Florida, committing to return the money with interest if the mission failed. With $160,000 raised, he set off for Florida, only managing to seize a small island called Amelia, defended by 51 Spaniards. There, he proclaimed the Republic of Florida and named himself president. He unsuccessfully attempted to impose taxes on local pirates. When Spanish forces prepared to attack the island, McGregor abandoned it, leaving his men under the command of Jared Irwin without pay and not returning the money to investors. The island was eventually taken over by a French privateer after Irwin defeated the Spaniards. McGregor continued his adventures, heading to Panama with 500 men. In Portobello, he ordered 200 men to fight while he observed from his ship. After defeating the Spanish, McGregor entered the city, proclaiming his victory. However, instead of advancing towards Panama City, he stayed in Portobello, indulging in leisure. Unprepared for defense, he was caught off guard by a Spanish attack. McGregor escaped by throwing his bed out of a window onto the beach, jumping onto it, and then swimming to his ship, where he was rescued by an officer, once again leaving his men at the mercy of the enemy. Following his exploits in Panama, Gregor McGregor continued his quest to enhance his legend through both feats and fabricated stories and titles. He spread the rumor that one of his ancestors from the Gregor clan had emigrated to America and married an Inca princess, thus claiming descent from that nobility. He self-styled himself as His Majesty the Inca of New Granada, and interestingly, according to historian David Sinclair, McGregor's unusually dark complexion for a Scot made this story more believable. In Riohacha, another port where McGregor made his mark, he repeated his pattern, abandoning his men when the situation became difficult. However, this time his deceptions and betrayals had consequences. Simón Bolívar, seeing him as a traitor, put a price on his head and ordered that he be hanged if he ever set foot again on South American soil. Thus, the glory McGregor had sought in his own way faded away. Stripped of his fictitious titles and with his reputation in ruins, Gregor McGregor disappeared from the scene, leaving behind a story marked by audacity, adventure, and excess. Chapter 3. Poyais. In 1819, while Gregor McGregor's whereabouts were unknown, Michael Rafter published a book in London titled The Memoirs of Gregor McGregor. Rafter, who had joined McGregor's expedition hoping to rescue his brother, Colonel William Rafter, one of the men McGregor had abandoned in Portobello and who ultimately died at the hands of the Spanish forces, wrote the book as a warning about McGregor's true nature. Rafter harshly criticized McGregor's fabricated story about the Inca princess and his self-proclaimed title of His Majesty the Inca of New Granada, calling it an aberration to human intellect. He also warned that McGregor was not dead and could entice more people to join his desperate and delusional projects. Despite these warnings, in 1821 McGregor reappeared in London, flaunting a new title, Sovereign Prince of Poyais and Cacique of the Poyais people. At that time, publishing a book did not guarantee widespread readership, and Rafter's work was no exception. Many in London still regarded McGregor as a war hero for his role in the Retreat of the 600 and his supposed affiliation with the diehards. He was received in London with admiration, now even more so as the chieftain of a country. The reality was that in the previous year, McGregor had been sailing along the Mosquito Coast, a region between Nicaragua and Honduras inhabited by descendants of slaves and indigenous people. The British authorities had appointed a king in Mosquitia, mainly to prevent Spanish claims, though these kings never had real control over the lands. It is said that McGregor, in one of his exploits, shared a hefty drinking session with the king of Mosquitia, who, charmed by his charisma, granted him a territory of over 30,000 square kilometers in exchange for rum and jewelry, an area larger than all of Wales. After acquiring the territory of Poyais, an area unsuitable for agriculture and plagued with undergrowth and mosquitoes, McGregor devised a cunning plan. In a South American context of constant political and governmental changes, the idea of a country named Poyais, ruled by the decorated Scot Gregor McGregor, did not seem far-fetched. He began to intensely promote Poyais, giving interviews, hiring publicists, and even promoting songs about this promised land on the streets of London, Edinburgh, and Glasgow. McGregor described Poyais as a flourishing state with a majestic capital, rivers of gold, and fertile lands. Attracted by these promises, over 500 investors bought land and state bonds of Poyais, offering an annual interest rate of 6%. About 200 of them, convinced by the promises, sailed to the Mosquito Coast. Upon arrival, however, they found a desolate and uninhabitable territory. Despite the disillusionment and hardships, some refused to believe they had been deceived, but the harsh reality soon set in. Diseases like malaria and yellow fever claimed the lives of at least 180 people. Less than 20 returned to Great Britain, and by then, McGregor had already fled. The Poyais scandal was widely covered by the newspapers, which accused McGregor of massive fraud. Interestingly, some of the survivors, even those who had lost family members in the expedition, defended McGregor, believing he was also a victim. While this was happening in London, McGregor was in France, attempting to repeat his scam. He sold bonds and lands of Poyais to French investors. But this time, the French government acted swiftly, and McGregor was arrested before another ship could set sail for a catastrophic destination. At the trial, McGregor blamed a French associate, and surprisingly, his strategy worked. Back in London, McGregor tried to replicate his scam, but with less success. In 1838, he ceased his attempts, and a year later, following the death of his wife Josefa, he returned to Venezuela. There, he regained his military rank and lived as a pensioner until his death at the age of 58 in Caracas, Venezuela. His life, marked by deceit and audacity, left a legacy of incredible stories and a warning about the dangers of gullibility and unchecked ambition. Gregor McGregor was a scoundrel who managed to escape justice, something that can't be said for Bernard Madoff, the world's greatest swindler. Here's his story. Like this video if you found it interesting, subscribe, and remember to leave your comment or suggestion. Thank you for being part of this community.